Hello everyone, my name is Kaz, and welcome to Alterac Valley, the 40-man PvPvE battleground introduced in Vanilla World of Warcraft, and making a return in Phase 3 of WoW Classic alongside Warsong Gulch. The purpose of this video is to provide a little insight on how AV ran back in the day, provide some comparisons to the live version of WoW that you may be playing now, as well as give my brief thoughts on the state of AV in the beta. So let's start out by talking about what our goal is in all of this, besides slaying as many members of the opposing faction, of course. Ultimately, to win AV, you need to kill the enemy team's general. For the Horde, that means dispatching Vandar Stormpike, and for the Alliance, you need to kill Drek Thor. What you may notice is there's no reinforcement counter, and if you're brand new to AV, you may see a lack of any kind of timer. That's because, as previously stated, the only way to win AV is to defeat the general, even if that means a 24-hour-long battle. It is worth noting the Classic is using the patch 1.12 version of this PG, so that means less total NPCs on the battlefield, reduced health of those remaining NPCs, and no Korak the Blood Rager guarding Snowfall Graveyard. Bummer, right? Blizzard chose this patch intentionally, stating in a blue post that, quote, "It gives us several early improvements to the BG that we're glad to have in place. Early on in AV, there were too many NPCs, and they were too hard to kill. By 1.12, many had been removed, and NPC health was brought down to a reasonable level. Turning in armor scraps was an encouraged supportive activity by this point. Many capture points, mostly graveyards, had been moved away from their initial placements to gain better balance across the map." End quote. And I tend to agree with this sentiment, even though I still fondly remember the multi-day matches. If you're an AV veteran, you'll probably notice a very familiar map, with teams starting in control of 3 graveyards and a neutral Snowfall Graveyard in the middle of the map, which is usually captured quickly by the Alliance nearly every time. Capturing and controlling these graveyards is an important part of the game, as it denies reinforcements from resurrected enemies, and once captured allows your own fallen troops to quickly return to the fray. You will see each side starting the map in control of 4 towers, 2 in their home base, and 2 forward locations ready to be attacked by the opposing faction. Capturing and ultimately destroying these towers is vital in that you reduce the number of marshals or war masters guarding the enemy faction's general. This makes winning the game much easier. You also deny the spawns of archers on these towers that dish out a reasonable amount of damage from a rather long range, making moving your army into position slightly easier once they've been dispatched. For all the reasons you want to destroy enemy towers, it's often worth going back and defending your own, because this will help keep in place those roadblocks that help slow progression and buy you the time that you may need to end up winning the match. You will also find that each faction's captain is still sitting in their stronghold, Belinda being the Alliance captain and Galvinger or Galv for the Horde. These captains periodically provide a shout, buffing their faction's health by 20%. Killing the enemy's captain will deny them that buff and make the battle slightly easier for yours. It will also halt the spawn of several NPCs, and if your captain still lives, you will receive additional periodic buffs strengthening your fighting might on the field. Something you may not be used to is the presence of additional commanders and lieutenants on the map. 6 lieutenants wander the roads and graveyards, providing a small buff to nearby friendly players. Killing them can help remove some of the fighting strength of your enemy, and also denies the spawn of a handful of NPCs. 4 commanders occupy towers, bunkers, and patrol the graveyards, providing a similar but slightly stronger buff to the players. Killing them will also remove that buff, and stop various NPCs from spawning, all ultimately making it easier for you to move around the map and win fights against the enemy. Something you may never have noticed in retail AV is the presence of quests. These quests are not only present in Classic, but very useful for honor and rep gains, and turning the tide of war in your favor. One such quest is turning in armor scraps. These are looted from enemy players and NPCs. One turn-in requires 20 scraps, and for a turn-in of 500, 1,000, and 1,500 total, your faction is able to upgrade your eligible NPCs. They'll go from the stock level to seasoned and veteran, finally capping out at champion level troops. This makes your NPCs more formidable, and also encourages your general to provide periodic buffs to your entire raid. Turning in scraps will also provide you with a personal polished armor buff lasting 30 minutes and increasing your armor value by 10%. It is worth noting that in order to proc the troop upgrades, you need to be honored rep. So if you're an AV newbie, keep on that grind and soon you'll be the hero that helps swings the tide of battle. But that doesn't mean that you can't contribute, even if you're not honored. Completing quests helps the faction as a whole and is a great way to work towards those rep goals. Another powerful quest turn-in is the aerial assaults via the wing commanders. You will have to free your captured wing commanders held in Icewing Bunker, Dunbalder North, and Stormpike Lumberyard for the Horde, and Tower Point, Frostwolf Village, and West Frostwolf Tower for the Alliance. Once freed, those commanders must survive the trip back to their home base to allow you to begin your turn-ins. Once Alliance players have their wing commander, they'll have to turn in various Frostwolf medals, depending on the wing commander, and similarly, Horde will turn in Stormpike Flesh. Once the turn-in requirements have been met, players can opt to take a beacon into the field to spawn a War Rider or Griffin Rider to fight for your team. Depending on which commander you take the beacon from, you'll be asked to place it in a specific location and defend it for a short time, roughly 1 minute, at which point the rider will appear and begin to patrol the area, raining hate on the opposing faction. With high enough rep, revered I believe, you can even order your wing commander to directly assault the enemy base. These guys hit hard and are not easy to take down, so having one in the sky to support your team is a big deal. Another quest you can complete is summoning a cavalry assault. This requires the turn-in of 25 hides and 25 tamed rams or wolves, depending on the faction. To get the hides, you must go into the enemy side of the map and kill the NPC rams for the Horde or NPC wolves for the Alliance, loot them, and pick up a hide. To tame your faction's beast, talk to the stable NPC and receive an item that will allow you to channel onto the ram or the wolf and tame it. Simply return to the stable to turn in the tamed beast. Once you have all 25 turned in, the person with appropriate reputation, honored I think, will be able to start a charge. These guys will start making their way down the map and can provide a solid DPS boost if you find yourself struggling to make a push. However, they may require additional orders to continue the assault. Once you complete your attack, or they're defeated, you'll have a short cooldown period before you can turn in and launch another assault. Now arguably, the most potent quest turn-ins is the summoning of an Elemental Lord. Lok-Halar the Ice Lord for the Horde, and Ivus the Forest Lord for the Alliance. They require the turn-ins of Soldier's Blood or Storm Crystals respectively. Once 200 have been turned in to either Primalist Thurloga or Archdruid Renfurl, you will need to escort the band of shamans or druids to the Field of Strife in order to complete a summoning ritual. This ritual requires 10 players to click and channel onto the summoning circle and requires the NPC to still be alive to do so. Once the summon is complete, Locke or Ivus will enter the Fields of Strife. They will patrol around for a time, seemingly 10 minutes or so, before they start their assault. These Elemental Lords can be buffed and healed, and it's strongly encouraged to do so as they pack a punch, and you can make them even harder to kill. Now something to watch out for is players similar to hunters that can pull them into combat and kite them behind enemy lines, where your team can no longer provide any support and the enemy is more easily able to engage and down this mighty foe. But if you can manage to protect them while they pat around on the fields, eventually they'll make their way pathing towards the enemy base and killing anyone that they find along the way. Now as a side note, if you see the opposing faction attempting this, you can kill their NPC before the Elemental Lord's brought to the field and prevent the summon as a whole. It will also put the summon on a 1 to 2 hour cooldown if I'm not mistaken. Now finally, a quest not featured in this video, as my team never made an attempt at it, is to spawn ground assault units. Now this requires the control of one or both of the mines. From there you can go and collect and then later turn in supplies at your base. Supplies gathered from the opposing faction's mine are worth more, but are obviously a bit harder to get, so keep that in mind. Once enough of these resources have been gathered, a player with honor reputation is able to send an elite ground assault troop on a rampage across the map. Much like the cavalry, they'll make their way across the map, dealing death and destruction to anyone they find. But once their mission's complete or they're defeated, they'll go on a short cooldown before you're able to do so again. Okay, so as a general rule for winning AV, you simply want to destroy enemy towers, take control of advantageous graveyards, and eventually take control of the enemy's base, allowing you to clear out the remaining marshals or war masters. This is going to give your team the best possible shot at engaging and defeating the enemy general. Now remember that while marshals can be pulled out of the keep and killed outside, pulling the general outside is going to cause a reset, restoring a bunch of his health, and likely tilting your team off the planet. Now, if you find yourself with aggro inside the keep, it's often better to simply stand your ground and die than attempt to run around and risk that reset. These generals are tough, so a proper tank is highly recommended, and they're going to need some kind of healing support. Control of the final graveyard is also highly recommended, as you're likely to lose some players in the fight, and being able to quickly re-enter the fight is a very useful tool. This, on the other hand, is a great way to stop the opposing faction, as regaining control of your graveyard can lead to a snowball of deaths on their side and eventually a wipe, which can help you eke out that win in the end. Pushing through choke points in AB can be a bit hard. Since completion of quest objectives provides you with buffs or advantages, and denying the enemy team's buffs can also give you an advantage, it's often worth pushing towards those objectives, getting the help of an elemental lord, for instance, or some wolf riders, and maybe you'll be able to finally push through some of those hard-to-break stalemates. Now, my final thoughts regarding this beta test is that AV is looking quite polished. Things seem to be working as intended, and I only had a handful of minor bugs to report throughout my 3 days spent there. AV, I would say, on the whole, feels quite good. I have seen a lot of people, however, express concern with Blizzard's choice to go to the 1.12 version of AV, instead preferring some of the earlier versions that lasted much longer. Now, while the 1.12 can allow for quicker matches, my record being a 21-minute completion in the beta, I have also found myself on the end of a 9+ hour match, with the average match being somewhere between 1 to 2 hours. Now, if you want these 2-day battles, unfortunately this patch is not going to meet your expectations. However, if your goal is to grind reputation to get those juicy rep rewards and to farm honor to rank up, this version is actually quite the fit. Keep in mind that killing the enemy general is worth a large chunk of rep. Killing captains, commanders, lieutenants, and towers also give rep, but all of those can only be done once per match. So the more matches you complete, the more rep you're going to gain. Let's also not forget marks of honor, which are a good source of XP, rep, and honor overall. Again, win or lose, being able to complete more AVs in a single day, instead of just one that takes place over several days, is going to lead to more rep and honor gains in the long run. While we're talking about rep, let's also remember that quest turn-ins give a small amount of rep, so they're definitely worth doing. Now, I will admit, going balls to the wall in the frontline combat can be fun. It's oftentimes much better to work the objectives on the map first, then join the fray once you've gained an advantage. Ultimately, AV's not going to be for everybody, but I personally had a blast on the beta, and it was very reminiscent of the times that I played 14 years ago. Now, if you enjoyed this video, I would ask that you consider giving a like, and possibly subscribing to my channel, as I hope to produce more of these videos in the future. You can find me on Twitch often, where I stream World of Warcraft Classic Beta, as well as retail daily. You can find me on twitch.tv/Kaz, and you'll find the link in the description below. Thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you again in a future video. Cheers!